The camera pans across a desolate Kansas field at dusk. A man, barefoot and blood-stained, stumbles down a dirt road, clutching something wrapped in a child's blanket. He mumbles incoherently, eyes wide with terror. A sheriff's cruiser skids to a stop beside him. "Sir, drop whatever's in your hands," the deputy shouts. The man looks down, confused, like seeing it for the first time. I think I did something terrible," he whispers as the screen cuts to black. Title: When the Corn Turns Red. The first time Dr. Eleanor Trask met him, he had no name. He'd been found wandering the shoulder of Highway 59 just outside of Lawrence, Kansas, barefoot, dirty, and carrying what turned out to be a bundle of wet towels soaked in animal blood. No ID, no phone, no memory. "I don't know who I am," he told the ER staff, "but I think I hurt someone." They called him John Doe and transferred him to the psychiatric ward of Addington Behavioral Health, where Dr. Trask specialized in trauma-induced dissociative disorders. She'd seen plenty of lost souls before, war veterans, abused children, cult survivors. But something about this man was different. His demeanor oscillated between hollow stillness and jittery panic. He didn't sleep. He rarely spoke. And when he did, his words felt like fragments of a broken film reel. The field was screaming. I saw her face in the corn. She was smiling, but her mouth wasn't moving. Dr. Trask took detailed notes. Early signs pointed to dissociative amnesia, a rare but real condition triggered by overwhelming trauma. Patients with it often forget large chunks of their identity, sometimes everything, while retaining basic functions and vocabulary. But there were gaps even that diagnosis couldn't explain. For instance, he had scars all over his torso and arms, perfectly straight, almost surgical. He flinched at the sound of running water. And every time he saw the color red, even in something as benign as a nurse's scrubs, he'd freeze up and whisper the same thing. "Don't let her out again. Her. Not it. Not me. Her." Dr. Trask began therapy sessions with him every morning. At first, he resisted. But after a week, he started to open up, not about his past, but his dreams. "She's in the corn," he said one day. "She watches me sleep. She says it's almost time." "Who is she?" Dr. Trask asked. "I don't know," he said, looking terrified. "But she's not done yet." Later that night, the hospital's security system picked up movement in the patient courtyard. When staff checked the footage, they saw him standing alone at the fence, whispering to the darkness. A voice was captured faintly on the audio, female, distorted by wind and static. "Remember what you did." When security arrived, he had carved something into the dirt with his bare hands. "If I remember, I die." Dr. Trask circled the phrase in her notes. The next morning, when she asked him about it, he stared at her with a look of pure dread. I used to be someone else," he said. And then he added something she didn't expect. "Do you believe people can have two minds inside one body?" Dr. Trask had heard the question before, in textbooks, in case studies, whispered behind locked psychiatric doors, but rarely with such terrified conviction. Dissociative identity disorder, formerly known as multiple personality disorder. A condition so controversial, many psychologists didn't even believe it truly existed. But the signs were there. John Doe's tone had changed. His posture, even the cadence of his voice, different. He blinked less, sat straighter. It wasn't the man she'd spoken to yesterday. It was someone new. "I think someone else is living in here with me," he whispered, tapping his temple. "She comes out when I sleep." Dr. Trask's pen slowed. She leaned forward. "Can you tell me about her?" He hesitated, as if saying her name would bring her forth. "I don't know her name, but I've seen her hands. They're mine, but wrong. The nails are sharp, dirty. She smiles when people cry." He paused, lips trembling. "Doctor," he said, "I don't think she's afraid of what we did. I think she enjoyed it." 3 days later, Dr. Trask initiated an experimental regression therapy session. With his consent, she guided him into a calm, semi-hypnotic state, hoping to bypass the amnesia and trigger buried memories. She asked him to describe a safe place. "A barn," he said. "Wooden. Red paint. Faded." "Good," she said. "And what's outside the barn?" He twitched. "Then, cornfields. Tall. The wind moves them, but they never bend. They're listening." "What's in the corn?" Silence. Then his body tensed violently. "She's coming," he hissed. The machines monitoring his vitals spiked. His heartbeat raced. His eyes rolled back, and he started to murmur in a different voice, softer, crueler, almost gleeful. "You wanted to know who I am," the voice said. "But you already know. You buried me. But I'm still here." Dr. Trask leaned in, chilled. "Who are you?" she asked. The voice giggled. "I'm the part he can't look at in the mirror." Suddenly, he jolted upright and screamed. After the session, Dr. Trask reviewed the audio, frame by frame. In the middle of the trance, for just a few seconds, the man's pupils had dilated unevenly. That, along with the vocal change and dissociation, was textbook did. But something didn't sit right. The alter, if that's what it was, wasn't protecting the core personality, it was taunting it. Most alters form to shield a person from trauma. This one seemed to revel in it. That night, a nurse named Clara was on the late shift. She went in to check on John Doe at 2:14 a.m. When she opened the door, he was gone. The window had been pried open from the inside, impossible without tools. His hospital gown was left neatly folded on the bed. But what made Clara drop the file she was holding was the note on the mirror, written in something that looked disturbingly like blood. She remembers now. Down the hall, a security camera flickered. In the footage, a woman was seen walking barefoot past the nurse's station, wearing a man's hospital bracelet. The town of Holcomb, Kansas, hadn't seen a story like this in decades. A nameless man disappearing from a psychiatric ward. A nurse reporting a barefoot woman in a hospital gown roaming the halls, with no explanation from the staff. The footage was grainy, distorted by static, but the figure was unmistakably feminine. Slender frame, long black hair. Her eyes never blinked. And her face, it didn't quite move right. Like her smile was a costume stitched on too tight. Dr. Trask drove down to Holcomb herself. Something about what was happening felt tied to that place, to the red barn he spoke of, the corn, the name he wouldn't say. She felt it in her bones. If there were answers, they were buried here. The town was half abandoned. Rows of boarded-up farmhouses and skeletal windmills stretched across the land like the remains of a long-dead animal. She found a dusty records office tucked behind the courthouse. The clerk was an old woman who looked like she hadn't left her desk in 20 years. Dr. Trask showed her the hospital photo of John Doe. "Have you seen this man before?" The woman squinted. Her face went pale. "Jesus," she whispered. "That's Charlie." "Charlie who?" "Charlie Vance. He grew up on Hollow Creek Road. Vanished when he was 15. Dr. Trask blinked. 15. Everyone thought he ran off. But there were rumors. About the girl who died. Dr. Trask leaned in. "What girl?" The clerk hesitated, then pulled out an old newspaper, yellowed and cracked. The headline read, "Local teen found dead in cornfield." Below it, a grainy photo of a girl with freckles and sad eyes. Maggie Whitlow, age 14. They said she wandered into the fields after school and never came back. Took him days to find her. Her body was, the woman shook her head, messed up real bad. Torn. And her smile. It was still on her face, like someone had forced it there. Dr. Trask felt the air go cold. Was Charlie ever a suspect? Not officially. But Maggie's mom said he was the last one to see her. They were friends. Or, used to be. She said Maggie had been acting strange, scared of something. Kept telling people, "There's someone else inside Charlie." That night, Dr. Trask couldn't sleep. She checked into a motel on the edge of town, kept the light on, and stared at the ceiling. The words repeated in her mind. "There's someone else inside Charlie." At 2:47 a.m., her phone buzzed. It was a security alert from Addington Behavioral Health. A motion sensor had been triggered in the courtyard. She opened the camera feed, and there she was, standing by the fence. Barefoot, long hair, pale skin, grinning. Dr. Trask's throat tightened. It wasn't possible. But the worst part wasn't that she was looking at the camera. It was that she waved, as if she knew Trask was watching. Then she turned and disappeared into the cornfield that bordered the hospital, which hadn't been planted in over a decade. The next morning, Dr. Trask returned to Addington Behavioral Health in a daze. She hadn't told anyone about the video, not yet. The cornfield shouldn't exist, let alone hide a barefoot woman no one could identify. She walked out behind the facility, past the gravel and dead grass, to where the corn had supposedly grown. But when she reached the edge of the property, her breath caught. The field was real. Tall, dense stalks of corn swayed in the windless air. She touched one. It was cold and damp with dew, alive. But Addington had decommissioned that land years ago. She knew because she'd fought the budget cuts herself. There had been nothing but dirt here for over a decade. "Am I losing my mind?" she whispered. Then she heard it, a faint giggle, a girl's voice, from somewhere deep inside the field. "Come find me." She backed away, heart pounding. That evening, she requested Charlie's file from the state. Now that she had a possible name, she could access what little history remained. The file was thin, most of it sealed or redacted, but one document stood out. A handwritten report from a school counselor dated October 2006. Student displays signs of severe disassociation. Possible early indicators of trauma-related identity disruption. When questioned about violent drawings in his notebook, he claimed, "I didn't draw those, she did." When asked who she was, Charlie became nonverbal and began clawing at his arms. Attached was a photocopy of one of the drawings. It showed a boy tied to a post in the middle of a cornfield. Shadows circled him, faceless, clawed. Above them floated a girl, mouth open in a scream, but the rest of her face smiling. Dr. Trask's hands trembled. She flipped the paper over and found a note scribbled in a child's handwriting. "She watches me from the mirror. When I close my eyes, she moves." Later that night, a code blue rang out from the lower level of the hospital. "Patient in room 3A, unresponsive." Dr. Trask rushed to the scene. When she arrived, the door was ajar, lights flickering. Inside, a nurse stood frozen, pale and shaking. "He was just lying there," she whispered. Then the lights cut. When they came back on, there was writing on the wall. "But we were the only ones here." Dr. Trask stepped in. The words were written in a dark, oily smear across the mirror. "You're next, Ellie." She hadn't told anyone her first name. Not a soul. And scrawled below it, in childlike script, "Do you want to play in the corn too?" As she turned to leave, her phone buzzed again. An unknown number. A voicemail. She played it. Static. Then a whisper. "You can't save him. He belongs to me." Followed by laughter that echoed long after the message ended. Dr. Trask hadn't felt fear like this since her residency. The year she lost a patient during an experimental therapy session and started waking up at 3:12 a.m. every night for months. That same sick weight had returned, like something behind her eyes was pulling her inward. She sat alone in her office, door locked, blinds drawn. A single lamp buzzed on her desk. The file on Charlie Vance lay open in front of her, but her mind kept returning to the mirror, to the writing. "You're next, Ellie." No one in the hospital called her that. It wasn't in her records. It wasn't even her badge name. Only one person ever called her Ellie. Her older sister, before she drowned. That was 30 years ago. She stared at her reflection in the darkened window, and for a split second, she could have sworn her own face smiled before she did. The next morning, she confronted the hospital administrator. "We have a breach," she said. "Someone is manipulating the patients, getting inside. I need full access to all basement archives." The administrator hesitated. "Dr. Trask, those records are from before the merger. They're off limits unless—" "I don't care. There's something down there, and if I don't get to it, people will die." She got the key. The basement was a forgotten wing of the hospital, untouched since the early 90s. Paint peeled off concrete walls. The smell of mildew and rust clung to the air like sweat. She passed long-abandoned rooms, yellowed manila folders scattered like fallen leaves. And then she found it. Room B, 17. The door was partially open. Inside, a stack of VHS tapes, medical binders, and a single bed bolted to the ground, its restraints cut. She pulled the top binder, Patient V, 231, Vance, Charles. Dated 2007. According to the intake form, Charlie was admitted after a series of dissociative fugue episodes and violent outbursts toward classmates. One doctor noted, patient reports hallucinations of a girl he claims lives inside the mirrors and corn. Diagnosis remains inconclusive, possibly did with psychotic features. Patient claims the girl has her own name, but refuses to speak it aloud, saying, "She told me if I say her name 3 times, she gets to take the body forever." Underneath that note was a list of attempts to get him to say the name. All failed. Until the final session. Transcription from October 31st, 2007. "Doctor, Charlie, what is her name?" "Charlie." Long pause. "She's making me." "Doctor, what is her name?" "Charlie." Whispering, "Margaret." "Doctor, say it again." "Charlie, Margaret." Doctor, one more time, Charlie. Charlie. Panicked, no? She said if I say it again, unintelligible screaming. End of transcript. The last page of the file was blank except for a single handwritten note in red pen. He said it a third time in his sleep. She never left. Dr. Trask stared at the name, Margaret. Maggie Whitlow. The girl in the corn. The room felt suddenly colder. Her breath fogged. The mirror on the far wall, cracked and dust-covered, began to ripple slightly, like water. And then, from inside the glass, her own voice echoed back. Say it one more time. Dr. Trask stumbled back from the mirror, her heart pounding so violently it echoed in her ears. Her own reflection had moved, not in sync with her, not bound by her body. It smiled again. That same broken, stitch-on grin she'd seen on the security footage. Say it one more time, it repeated, the voice distorted, as if underwater. She turned and ran. Back upstairs, the world felt too bright, too sterile. Nurses moved through the halls like ghosts. Her hands wouldn't stop shaking. She needed answers, and there was only one place left to get them. She ordered a secure session with Charlie, if he was still Charlie. Security had finally found him that morning, curled in a fetal position in the staff locker room. He'd clawed his arms bloody again and kept muttering the same phrase. She's almost me. Dr. Trask sat across from him in the observation room. His eyes were bloodshot, his voice raw. You found her, didn't you? He said without looking up. Who is she? He let out a laugh that broke halfway through. She's not a ghost. Not a demon. She's a copy. An echo made of fear and pain and memory. She was born when Maggie died. Born inside me. Dr. Trask felt her skin crawl. An altar. He shook his head. Worse. She's a mirror of everything I couldn't face. He looked up. His pupils were blown wide, hollow. I watched her die, doctor. But I didn't just watch. His breath caught. I didn't stop it. She leaned forward. Charlie, tell me what happened in that cornfield. He whispered. She told me to meet her there. Said she needed to talk. But when I got there, she wasn't right. She was smiling, but crying. She said, there's something inside me and it's looking for a way out. He closed his eyes, trembling. I think she was broken before I ever got there. Something happened to her. Maybe someone hurt her. Maybe her mind cracked. But she said if I didn't help her, it would come for me next. Dr. Trask felt her breath catch. So what did you do? I ran. I left her there. And then, softly, I heard her scream. A long silence. She died out there, alone. And whatever was inside her, it didn't die with her. He looked her in the eye, voice trembling. It crawled into me. Later that night, Dr. Trask sat in her office, all the lights off. The hospital was quiet. Too quiet. She stared at her reflection in the dark window again. It smiled and said, You left her too, didn't you? She stood so fast her chair fell over. Her phone buzzed. A message from a number with no contact ID. Ellie. 3:12 a.m. The mirror. Be there. 3:12 a.m. The exact time her sister drowned. The exact time she'd woken up screaming for years afterward. The mirror in her office began to fog over, though the room was ice cold. And in the fog, a word appeared, traced by an invisible finger. Maggie. 3:12 a.m. Dr. Trask stood in front of her office mirror, her breath shallow, her hands cold. Behind her, the rest of Addington Behavioral Health lay silent, dark. She hadn't told anyone. No guards. No backup. Just her, the mirror, and the name. The fog on the glass shifted. A figure began to form. Maggie. Long black hair. Wet. Tangled. Freckles across her cheeks. Eyes wide, as if forever stuck in the moment of her final terror. And that smile, grotesque, too wide, carved into place by trauma. Ellie, she whispered through the glass. Dr. Trask didn't know why she responded, but she did. I'm here. You let her drown. Trask's knees nearly gave out. No, she gasped. That wasn't my fault. I was 10. I tried to. You looked away, Maggie said. And I sank. No. But the room was gone now. The walls faded into corn. Endless rows. And somewhere nearby, a child screamed. Ellie turned. Her younger self stood at the edge of the cornfield, barefoot, mud on her nightgown. She watched her sister thrashing in the water beyond the stalks, too far to reach. I told you to watch me, the girl said. Ellie collapsed, sobbing. It wasn't just Maggie that haunted Charlie. It was guilt. It was always guilt. And now it had her, too. Back in the hospital, alarms blared. Charlie had vanished from his room again. But this time, something was different. There was blood. A trail leading down to the courtyard. Into the cornfield that shouldn't exist. Security wouldn't follow. The stalks were too thick. Too quiet. Like they were holding their breath. Dr. Trask woke up lying among them. The air smelled like rust and rotting earth. The corn whispered. She stood slowly, barefoot. Her shoes were gone. Charlie stood a few feet away, unmoving. Maggie's gone, he said, voice hollow. She took everything. No, Dr. Trask said. She's still inside you. Inside both of us. He turned, and for a moment, his face was hers. His eyes wide with realization. I remember, he whispered. And suddenly it was him, a teenage boy again. Pale. Shaking. Crying. I didn't hurt her. I swear. But she begged me to stay. Said the voice was getting louder. I ran. He fell to his knees. I left her out here. That's the truth. I left her to die. The corn shifted. Maggie stepped out. Not a ghost. Not a girl. A presence. Built from grief, abandonment, and rage. Her body flickered between forms, the girl, the mirror smile, the shadow. She wasn't Maggie anymore. She was the guilt. The mirror mind that fed on it. You remembered, she said. Now you belong to me. Dr. Trask stood between them. No, she said. We face what we've done. We don't let it take us. She looked straight at Maggie. You were a child. You were hurt. But you're not her anymore. You're the wound. The figure screamed, fractured, splintering like glass. Then, silence. Dr. Trask awoke in a hospital bed. Charlie beside her, alive. Himself. The cornfield was gone. Demolished. In the official report, the building had a gas leak. Patients were relocated. No mention of Maggie. No mirrors allowed in the new wing. Charlie remembered everything. Therapy began again, for real this time. But Dr. Trask never looked at herself in a mirror again. Because every now and then, when the lights flickered just right, she swore she saw a girl smiling back. And that smile wasn't hers.